Hi, I'm Sherman Griffin. I'm chair of the board of music at Epiphany, and I'm here with Zach Hemenway, our director of music, and Marco Rosano, the composer of Stabat Mater. We're very excited to perform your Stabat Mater and its West Coast premiere on March 10 at Epiphany, Seattle.
Thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure for me as well.
Wonderful. We've really been looking forward to speaking with you. So you were born in Turin, Italy, and you lived in Belgium for a while, and now you're back in Turin. Stabat was first performed in Sydney, Australia, and we're here in Seattle, Washington performing it. So it truly is
Yes.
a global musical world that we live in. But Marco, maybe give us a little background. What was your inspiration to compose this setting of Stabat Mater?
For me, the Stabat Mater was like when in your life you have a lot of coincidences, a lot of fact happenings, a lot of moments in your life that just resume in one. And this was the answer for me was yes, the Stabat Mater, because the lyrics, the poetry, it's so beautiful, it's so deep, it's so strong, that it was for me a very strong attraction to try to go inside this moment in artistry and in poetry. So it was just like if the music was already there. The quality of the poetry, of the lyrics, it's so deep, it's so rich, that I was just hearing music coming from the lyrics, just reading them. And then I was very interested in this research, starting from the idea that I believe in the Baroque sacred music. There is this special emotion, this kind of evocate like an inner spiritual space. When I listen to Baroque sacred music, I can go in this special place. So I was just thinking, is it possible to do this kind of research? It's not really a technical, a stylistic research. It's more like an emotional research. Can I try to evocate something similar to this special emotion that exists when I listen to this kind of music or not? So this was the starting of this research, to create a special inner spiritual place of prayer and meditation.
We're really excited that Jose Luis Munoz is going to be our countertenor.
Yes.
Yes, and I've had the privilege of singing with him over the years, and he just has an incredible countertenor voice.
Yes.
So if you have any tips or inspiration for him as the composer, what
I
might you offer?
believe he doesn't need any tip or inspiration. It's just everybody find his way, I believe. So it's more about finding his way and not really listening to any advice or inspiration, because I believe he has a lot of talent. So he's going to do a wonderful work, I'm sure.
I've always kind of been in love with the Stabat Mater text, right? I loved what you said about putting a woman at the center, and it got me thinking, because like the sort of if I had to like break the entire Stabat Mater hymn into two main sections, there's like the first half of it is basically like super descriptive, right? It's like sort of telling a story or setting a scene of, Mary like watching her son be like horrifically killed. And sort of it sets the scene, and then it sort of changes somewhere, I think like movement 9, like the MAE Mater, it changes to it stops describing Mary, and it starts sort of with pleas from the singer of the hymn, or the that like, oh, that I may share in your grief, grant me this, and it goes from telling the story and setting the scene to this like fervent desire to participate in the scene. Yes. And be there. And like the second half is really empathetic, for lack of a better word, or at least really desiring to be empathetic. And like what you were saying about like putting a woman at the center, especially in this world with the war in Ukraine, all of that, like I'm starting to think about like, maybe the Stabat Mater is really it's definitely about Mary, but maybe it needs to be more about us, that we should all want to have that kind of reaction to human suffering, and want to engage in other people's pain a little bit more. It's sort of, you're making me think of the text in a little bit of a different way, actually.
I'm really intrigued with what you said about not putting any dynamic or tempo indications in markings in the score. Which is interesting from an audience perspective. Somebody sitting out in the audience obviously might not know that, but it really gets to the fact that the performers can guide the direction of the piece from their emotions, from their heart, from their soul. And that obviously lends itself to incredible performances that the audience can then join in very meaningful ways.
Yes, I believe it's important to let everybody really express, especially in this kind of work, because we don't need to respect any tradition or any. So you have all the freedom in the world to use, to find your language, your emotions. If you find that starting from this idea of really putting people in a special spiritual inner place, you need to go very slow or very fast. So we can really also think about some hypnotic process in the technical, strictly technical way. And there are some process of putting people in hypnosis if you do a research. So also with rhythm, with change of rhythm. So if you really want, you can also go technically. But I believe just intuition usually works very well, because when something is working for you, usually it's also working for a lot of other people. But it's not the same for everybody. So for this reason, I think it's good to leave this freedom, this open score, when yes, of course you have notes, but you have a lot of different possibilities, and can also be fun just to try to experiment and to do something different, something that new.
Do you have a favorite part of your setting? Favorite phrase, favorite?
But the O Quantristis is just becoming kind of the single of the because there is something very magic going on. So I can say I like 3 or 4 very, but the O Quantristis, there is some space, some special grace moment, let's say, because I wrote a lot of music in my life. I mean, I don't know, maybe 1,000 and something. And I believe there is more, maybe 10 or 20 really special music when I can say, okay, there I was in this grace moment. So O Quantristis is one of this moment of grace, for sure.
So as you know, we're performing both your setting as well as the Pergolesi setting, and our audience is really certainly in a treat for that. Any thoughts, Zach, on these 2 pieces together and what the audience might be thinking about?
I think audiences don't often realize how much sort of thought or goes into putting together a concert, or how difficult it can be when you start thinking about like, oh, well, this piece is this long, I need this many more minutes of music, similar instrumentation so I can stay within a budget, plus, oh, this would work. Oh, no, actually it doesn't, because it's a lot of the same thing. That'll be an hour and a half of the same thing. And like, it's sometimes a little bit more tricky than you might imagine. And so then Jose wrote me and said like, oh, hey, what about, I've always wanted to do this Rosano setting of the Stabat Mater. We could just do 2, just have the concert be 2 settings. And then when I started looking at the piece, I thought, this is fantastic. It is completely different than the Pergolesi. Like, I love that Marco describes it as being very hypnotic, because like there's certainly moments in the Pergolesi that are just blissful and gorgeous and introspective, but there are also moments in the Pergolesi where you're sort of ripped out of that sort of blissful place, right? And there are movements that just don't make sense musically in the Pergolesi around, or if they do make sense, I sometimes wonder whether it's like Satan's joke on the world, right? That you've got this like, text talking about the mother grieving at her crucified son, and the music is just sort of almost like comical in places. And so what I love about it is that we've got the same text, but they're just so different. I find Marco's work to be, as a whole, much more introspective. They end very differently. One of my favorite portions of your setting is actually the last movement in the end. The Pergolesi sort of goes out with a splash, and I kind of like to picture in the last movement of Marco's setting, like it's sort of the text is something like may my, like when my, it's the singer of the hymn saying like when my own body dies, like now that we've been talking about Christ dying, it's like when my body dies, like may my soul like enter into the bliss of heaven. So you sort of have this sort of really floaty sort of atmospheric thing going on. And then did you mean like, is the amen, the sort of ascending by half step stuff at the end, is that supposed to be the soul going into heaven? I sort of thought it might be, but it's just very different than the Pergolesi. Like the Pergolesi, it's just sort of, I think the soul going into heaven is this kind of loud, triumphant thing. Whereas with Marco's setting, it's just more ethereal, for maybe lack of a better word.
Very interesting what you said about the ending. Yes, of course, the ending has a very special quality because it's just the only moment when I was going out of this hyper simple language, and I wanted just in the ending to give a little bit different, just like leaving a doubt about, you know, not being too sure about anything. So just let's give this open ending, not just okay, this is the truth. No, this is just one way of. So yes, very good that you're understanding this kind of small emotional things in the language. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Marco, this has been such a treat. Do you have any final thoughts for us as we go to perform this next week?
I will be there with you, not physically, but spiritually, for sure. So I believe it's very, very nice. I really thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart, for your generosity of this idea of playing my music. I'm very happy about it. So just thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you very much. We're honored to perform it and wish that you were here with us. We do welcome you to Seattle anytime in the future.
Thank you. Sure. Okay. You never know. I can ring your bell. Be careful what you say.
No, we would absolutely welcome it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.